Psychologists have noticed that some children do not lose their childhood all at once. They outgrow it quietly. Sometimes you only notice it later, when a simple question about childhood makes you pause longer than it should. People imagine growing up too fast as one dramatic event, but more often it looks like you being the calm one, the helpful one, the one who never made things harder. You rest and somehow feel guilty. Someone offers help, and you almost do not know what to do with it. It should feel comforting, but it does not. You are not weak. You are not difficult. What if these habits were never random at all? What if they are traces of the moment you learned responsibility before you ever learned safety? What most people miss about a child who grew up too fast is that the signs do not always look tragic. Sometimes they look admirable. Psychologists sometimes describe this as adaptation under pressure. A child learns what keeps the environment stable, and the nervous system starts building around that role. So later in life, the clues can look surprisingly ordinary. You feel guilty when you rest. Someone offers help, and you do not quite know how to receive it. You are calm in situations that should overwhelm you, but strangely uneasy in moments that should feel safe. From the outside, these can look like strengths, and sometimes they are, but that is only part of it. Because what looks like maturity may actually be a set of survival patterns that never got the message that childhood was over. The first sign is becoming the responsible one too early. Not because you were especially ready, because someone had to be. Maybe you were the child who kept things from getting worse, the one who stayed quiet, helped out, handled the practical stuff, or made yourself easy to deal with because there was already enough tension in the room. From the outside, that looks impressive, dependable, mature. But what most people miss is that early responsibility is not always evidence of readiness. Sometimes it is childhood being quietly traded for stability. What felt normal to you may have been too much for a child. Psychologists have a word for the deeper pattern underneath this: parentification. That is when a child slowly becomes the helper, the peacekeeper, the emotional container, or the one who starts carrying responsibilities that belong to adults. It does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like making dinner too young, reading a parent's mood the second they walk in, knowing when to stay small because the room already feels too full. Developmental psychology has long noted that children in these roles often appear unusually mature, but from the inside, it is less like maturity and more like learning to hold weight before you were built for it. Small person, adult burden. What felt normal to you may have been far too heavy for a child, and that part of you does not just disappear. That is why many people who grew up this way become intensely self-reliant. They stop expecting comfort, stop asking for help, stop assuming support will really be there when they need it. So they learn to do everything alone. From the outside, this can look strong, competent, low maintenance. Internally, it can be something much sadder. Needing less because needing more once felt risky. Researchers who study early stress often notice this pattern. The child becomes capable, but capability starts replacing connection. And that behavior often follows them straight into adulthood. Even when support is available, asking for it can feel strangely heavy. You want reassurance, but the words do not come out. You want to lean on someone, but your body stays guarded. You may even hear yourself saying, "I'm fine," while carrying far more than you should. On the surface, this can look like pride or emotional distance, but what looks like distance may actually be conditioning. A nervous system trained to believe that other people's needs come first and yours can wait. It should feel comforting, but it does not. That is not always a flaw. It may be an old survival rule still running in the background. People who grew up too fast often do not rest easily. They sit down to relax and immediately feel restless, guilty, vaguely on edge, like they should be doing something, fixing something, preparing for something. From the outside, that can look like discipline, but stress research suggests something deeper. If staying alert once helped you stay safe, then stillness can start to feel exposed rather than peaceful. Rest stops feeling like rest. It feels like an engine that never fully turns off, like too many browser tabs still open in the background. You want calm, but quiet can feel unfamiliar. And that is where the psychology gets even deeper. After enough years, the coping style can stop feeling temporary and start feeling like identity. Hyper-aware, emotionally restrained, over-functioning, always ready. People say, that's just who I am. Maybe, but what looks like personality may actually be a survival pattern that got practiced so often it became automatic. Psychologists sometimes talk about this as chronic adaptation, protective behaviors that harden into a way of being. So the person starts believing they are naturally intense, naturally guarded, naturally built to carry more than other people. You are not broken if that happened. It may simply mean your system learned one setting and stayed there. That same pattern often shows up as a strong need for control. Not always control over people, control over outcomes, timing, plans, variables, possibilities. You replay conversations, overthink small decisions, run through 10 different scenarios before replying to a simple message. Other people may call it anxiety, perfectionism, or being too much. But what most people miss is that control often begins as protection. If unpredictability once meant danger, then planning becomes emotional armor. From the outside, it looks excessive. Internally, it feels necessary. Because somewhere in the background, a younger part of you still believes that if you stay ahead of everything, maybe nothing falls apart. This is one of the more painful signs. If your worth got tied early to being useful, you may grow up feeling most connected to people who need something from you. You help, you fix, you rescue, you carry. You become the calm one in someone else's storm. From the outside, it looks generous, loyal, loving, and sometimes it is. But underneath, there may be a deeper belief. I matter most when I am needed. That changes relationships. Steady love can feel unfamiliar. Sometimes the love that is healthiest feels the least emotionally convincing at first. Simple care can feel strangely hard to trust. You may want closeness, but feel most comfortable in dynamics where you are earning your place. That behavior may mean more than it seems. The hidden cost is that the same person who looks strongest on the outside often feels the least held on the inside. They are capable in a crisis, reliable under pressure, calm when everyone else is falling apart. But in private, they may feel tired in a way sleep does not fix, emotionally underfed, empty when they are not actively being useful. This is the contradiction. Early adaptation can create impressive external functioning, while quietly delaying inner safety, softness, and ease. They know how to hold everything together. They do not always know how to let themselves be held. And that is why some of them can be surrounded by people and still feel strangely alone. And that is what makes the final point matter. Healing does not mean becoming less capable. It means realizing that the part of you that learned to survive early may not need to stay in permanent readiness forever. The child who grew up too fast did something extraordinary. They adapted. They endured. They kept going. But that child may still be living as if the emergency never fully ended. And healing begins when that old system slowly recognizes a new truth. Not every quiet moment is dangerous. Not every need is a burden. Not every soft thing has to be earned first. You learned to stay ready before you learned to feel safe. That is why this process can feel so unfamiliar. So when you put all of these patterns together, the early responsibility, the self-reliance, the discomfort with help, the guilt around rest, the need for control, the way usefulness gets confused with love, they stop looking random. They start telling one story. Not weakness, not failure, not brokenness. Just a nervous system that learned responsibility before safety, strength before softness, and readiness before rest. And that changes the meaning of everything. What looked like maturity may have been survival. What looked like distance may have been protection. What looked like strength may have been a child carrying far more than they ever should have. And some part of that child may still be waiting to learn that it is finally safe to put the weight down. If this hit home for you, subscribe for more psychology videos like this.